Hey everyone, this is Griffin, the producer at Breaking Points, and I'm joined today by Yehuda Cohen, who is the father of an Israeli hostage. Yehuda, your son Nimrod, was taken as an IDF soldier on October 7th and is still in Hamas captivity to this day. What I've also been struck about your family's story, because I've been following your family, is that your family's been very outspoken against your own government, in saying things like Netanyahu doesn't care about the hostages. You've been protesting and been a very loud voice. And your family has also said that IDF soldiers should perhaps receive dual citizenship in America because perhaps America might care more about the hostages than Israel. So I'd like to say, in your own words, where are we right now? It's March, some 16 or 17 months since October 7th. And what is the situation right now in terms of hostages?
Well, let me give you the big picture. So, as you said, Nimrod, my son, was taken as a soldier, taken hostage as a soldier on the 7th of October. The tank didn't much operate. They were all taking hostages. Nimrod was the only one taken alive. He's still alive there. Recent hostages who returned two of them were with him for their last 8 months until the day of their release. So we have fresh information about, first of all, the fact that Nimrod is alive, well and healthy, struggling. He's still there, and we are fighting for his release. Regarding criticism on our government, every word you said is true. Yeah, it's starting from the fact that Netanyahu is working for political interest. I must say, a very narrow sectorial political interest. His only interest is to maintain his government. And for this, he needs the support of his extremists in the government, right extremists in the government who actually want a permanent occupation in Gaza, even rebuilding settlements there. So, yeah, that's the situation. And of course, after 17 months, the situation is that since Netanyahu's government was forced to go for a deal, the first part, forced by President Trump administration to do so, and refusing to continue to the second part, emphasizing on the fact that the first part of the agreement included full withdrawal from the Philadelphia corridor, and Netanyahu refused to do that, and of course refuses to send a negotiation team from the 16th day of the first deal, and refused now to start the negotiation of the second part. So the American administration is trying to get a partial deal, even going kind of maneuvering to get the American citizens free first, or the double citizen, as they call it. And yeah, I'm saying cynically, our situation is this, that we need to get a foreign citizenship, best to have it an American one, to put my son somewhere in the line concurrently, because currently he's the last. So this is pretty much the situation currently.
Yes, and you mentioned the pressure from the Trump administration. I did want to ask you some of the details about that. Now, recently in the news, Adam Bowler, who was the Trump hostage envoy, created a little bit of some ripples. It created some news that he was communicating directly with Hamas as opposed to the normal route of the Qatari mediators. And not only was he meeting with Hamas, but some of his comments really caught a lot of backlash. He said things like Hamas are not bad guys, or they're sort of nice guys. They don't have horns growing out of their heads, I believe was one of his comments, and that the U.S. is not an agent of Israel. Now, he has, after a lot of backlash, withdrawn his nomination to continue being the hostage envoy. What are your feelings on Bowler, and in just having direct talks with Hamas?
So first of all, the fact that he said Hamas doesn't have horn, I'm the last to criticize Adam Boller because he's working for us. Of course, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hamas is holding my son for the sake of getting prisoners, Palestinian prisoners who were accused of murder, what we call blood on their hands. But this is not my main concern. The fact is that my government are putting obstacles on the negotiation, including what Adam Boller is doing. We have to see the real picture. The real picture is, by law, my government has the obligation to get a hostage deal to free all the hostages. By law, and I mean specific law, specific basic law in the Israeli law book that put the responsibility of the security of Israeli citizens and soldiers on the government. And the government is not doing that. But more than that, my government is putting obstacles on anyone who tries to get a hostage deal, including Adam Boller. We call it the poison machine. They are actually practicing the poison machine, the same poison machine they are practicing against us, practicing against Americans, messengers, if I'm putting the word right, that are working to release hostages. So forget about the details. The big picture is that the American administration, especially through special envoys like Steve Witkoff and Adam Boller, are trying to get a hostage deal, and Netanyahu and his government are putting obstacles against that, while they should do the opposite.
Yeah, and that's a very nuanced answer, because essentially you're saying, I may not even agree with everything this Bowler guy is saying or approve of it, but what are you left with if you feel like your own government isn't advocating for the hostages, isn't working towards that deal? It seems like the only option left is to potentially have the Americans negotiate with Hamas. Now, you mentioned Steve Witkoff, who also has gotten a lot of backlash from Israeli government officials, from American right officials. Some have accused Steve Witkoff of being a Qatar agent. And he, I remember this moment where Steve Witkoff was trying to get this ceasefire started, and the Netanyahu officials told him it was Shabbat. And he said, well, we're going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And so I was really struck by that moment. And I guess I wanted to hear specifically from your experience, is the Trump administration, does it feel like it's applying more pressure than the previous Biden administration? Because I would be shocked to hear a Biden administration official apply that kind of pressure to Israel. What is your opinion?
Well, we said it in the past, and I said again, yeah, the Trump administration is putting more pressure than the Biden administration. The main reason, as I see it, and I'm not a big politician, is the Trump administration is working brute force, straightforward. Forget about ceremonies or procedures or diplomatic protocols. They are like businessmen. They are there to be actual, to do what needs to be done. Forget about the talks around. Biden administration was more gentle. I must say Biden administration was more convenient to Netanyahu to trick them over. And the Trump administration is not doing that. But coming back to the first thing you said about Adam Boller, that I don't agree on anything he does, it must be clear out. I agree on anything Adam Boller is doing. I'm not looking for the details. Doesn't matter if he says that Hamas doesn't have horn or have horns. It's not the thing. The thing is to get a hostage deal. The thing is the American administration, through Adam Boller and through Steve Witkoff, are doing what my government was supposed to do. And my government, out loud, they're saying, we want the war to continue. Now, the war to continue is not just preventing a hostage deal. It's more than that. Israel, as a nation, and polls shows that, wants a permanent ceasefire. The Israeli citizen does not want to continue this war. Soldiers are being killed, civilians are being killed, great suffrage, along with the fact that hostages, 41, last count, were murdered directly or indirectly by the continuance of fighting. So the Israeli interest as a nation, I'm not talking about my government, as a nation, the clear interest is hostage deal and ceasefire, both of them. It's not just hostage deal and okay, we'll go for ceasefire. The two things are wanted by the Israeli nation. 70% last poll show that. That's what the Israeli nation wants. The reason why Netanyahu wants to continue the war is for narrow political interests, and there's two I can put up. One of them is to maintain his coalition, where the extremists in this coalition, and we saw how Ben Gvir withdrew from the coalition just because of the first deal, and Smotrich is threatening to withdraw if the second part will come along, because they want on the table, they want permanent occupation in Gaza, they want to rebuild settlement there, they're not hiding it. And as for Netanyahu, the second reason, Netanyahu knows that while war continues, there's no time for investigation, there's no time for criticism. Quiet, we are fighting. We just saw today he's trying to sack the head of the Shabak. So to get this quiet, we are fighting, no time for criticism. I can do whatever I like. We know that a lot of dictators in the past used the war to do what they wanted. And we can go back to 39, back in Germany. Netanyahu is doing the same. I'm not comparing him to the Nazi regime, but a lot of ways he's using are pretty much similar, including putting the head of a racist party, which is Ben Gvir, in charge of the police. And including the fact, going back to the Second World War, the Holocaust, to avoid ending of the war, it's putting a selection between hostages, the sick to be released, but the healthy to stay and die. And I once even compared it to the Second World War. Yeah, the United States saved the remaining of the Holocaust survivors back in 45. And today, even though we have a government and an army, the United States are helping us to save the hostages who are experiencing a Holocaust today in 2025.
I'd also like to say for our audience, Yehuda here is not some liberal squish. I mean, you do, I think, identify as a lefty, but your entire family has served, in the military. I believe your other son served in Gaza. Your daughter, I believe, is in the military right now. Your family are patriots for Israel. You've given your whole entire family for the country. So I'd like to really note that. You mentioned the extremist government. I read an article recently where you were in an argument with a member of the Likud party. It was either you or your son. And they said, if you continue to go on like this, your son will remain in the Hamas dungeons for years, which is kind of just it's a kind of a sickening idea that the more that you advocate for your son's release, that potentially that could harm your son in some way. Do you fear, because of your outspokenness, reprisal from the government, whether it's censorship, whether it's any kind of arrest, and do you fear that that they may slow down your own son's release because of your protest?
Well, first of all, I want to be more accurate about this Likud member who told me if you can continue like that, your son will remain in the dungeons. It was one of in the Knesset, in one of the committees, I was talking about my future visit, I already had it, with the prosecutor in the ICC, Karim Khan, saying very simply, since the government is not doing its obligation by law, I have to go to foreign resources like international organization as the ICC, and on the other hand, go to Washington to advocate there around Trump's people to force my government to do what it should be doing by law. So yes, that's what that was the context of this heinous remark. Regarding me being a patriot, yeah, I must be more accurate. You don't have to be an extreme right and shout blood, blood, war, war to be a patriot. A patriot in modern times, in modern countries, first of all, yes, serve the country. I served in the military. My wife served. Of course, Nimrod was serving. My oldest son was serving. He actually was fighting in Gaza in the first month. And my daughter is now in the army. And of course, to be a patriot in a modern country is to work, to contribute to the economy, and to pay taxes. That's what I'm doing. My home is in Israel. My center of life is in Israel. My children, my family, my parents are all in Israel. This is my country, and I love my country, not the government, my country, and I'm a patriot. And I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
No, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Do you fear reprisal? We're seeing reprisal on protesters here in America calling for a ceasefire. Do you fear sometimes that your own government may act on you for being outspoken?
So let's say if they could, they would. Meaning that, the background of this government, things that happened before the 7th of October and trying to do now to break the judgmental system, to try to actually be the law. So currently now they can't do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they'll succeed in their judgmental system breakdown. They would do it. They don't like what I do. Accidentally, last time I've been in the Knesset, I was in one of the committees, Simcha Rotman's committee. He's the head of the committee of Constitution and Law. They told me, I didn't see it. He came in to the room smiling, and when he saw me, his smile dropped down. He doesn't really like me. So they don't like me. They know what I'm talking about. And as this government ignores the people want, meaning 70% in polls want a ceasefire and hostage deal, they are ignoring us. Currently, they are doing it pretty much successfully because we are, advocating, we are protesting everywhere. It doesn't move anything. Yeah, we need external help to do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if one day, like in other countries, Russia, Hungary, Poland in the past, they will try to eliminate us.
Well, let's hope not.
The moment they can break the free press in Israel, we will be the second step.
Yeah, it's crazy. I read Haaretz every day. I read a lot of other Israeli newspapers. They're often more honest than the American newspapers about the situation, which I find really fascinating. You mentioned Ben Gvir earlier, and I wanted to ask a quick question about that. Now, there are thousands of Palestinian prisoners post October 7th. Many of them have not been given a trial or charged with any crime. And Ben Gvir has often been filming videos where he is threatening to humiliate the prisoners. He's made statements about how we should execute the prisoners and things like that. And it strikes me as something that could really potentially put the Israeli hostages in danger. How do you feel about those statements?
Well, it's more than that. We heard from Eli Sharabi that every time there were threats to degrade the condition of Palestinian prisoners in Israel, they got beaten, they got mugged, they got less food and stuff like this. Yeah, it does. It can hurt the hostages, and of course we see it as a problem. I won't be the first one to shout for the rights of the Palestinian prisoners, but I won't go shouting to worsen their condition. because right now we need to make sure hostages who are there, including my son Nimrod, won't be hurt because of those steps. And I must say, as Bear Grylls for himself, he doesn't care about the hostages. For him, it's nuisance, and we saw it in the when we were in the Knesset. He said to one of the mothers of a hostage, Einaf Zangarko, if you're familiar with the name, I want I want to release 1,000 Sinwars for hostages. In other words, saying I don't care about them. Yeah, I want the hostages back for free, but not to pay the price. And I was saying this government is responsible for the events of the 7th of October by neglecting all warnings, not talking about the fact that for 15 years, Netanyahu allowed pushing money into Gaza to strengthen Hamas for his, strategy not to be forced to go for negotiation on a two-state solution. So they're responsible for strengthening Hamas. They're responsible for neglecting the event of the 7th of October. And the government, as a government, beyond the fact that they should resign, they should pay the price of their neglection. And yes, release prisoners for getting the hostages back. After that, they can do whatever they like. But first of all, the hostages.
So I guess my final question for you, and sort of a message that maybe you can give to our audience, and really any American Jewish people, or really any Americans that care about the release of the hostages, what should they be advocating for? What should they be pushing our government for in this moment?
Well, it's the same thing I'm saying for more than the last year. A hostage deal, along with a permanent ceasefire and IDF withdrawal, and all this pressure needs to be put on Netanyahu's government and, of course, Netanyahu himself. We need the Jewish community help in the U.S. For their point of view, they're always saying they're afraid of anti-Semitism rising up. And we always say anti-Semitism rise up when there is conflict in the Middle East. Ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, is towards peace. This will put down anti-Semitism in their region. And if they really care for Israel, and that's what they're claiming, caring for Israel is caring for the Israeli nation, not the Israeli government. There's always the say, this is a democratic country, there is an elected government, and we have to go with what the government says. Well, we have to look beyond that, because we know that our government is not an innocent government who is working for the Israeli nation interest. Prolonging a war is not working for the interest of the nation. So they have to decide, do they want to support a government who is working against its citizens, and look at the amount of demonstrations against the government, or work for the Israeli nation, meaning, well, first of all, you can say technically going with the opinion of the majority of the Israeli nation, or just look for the good of the nation, which means peace and security. And this is ceasefire. This is getting the hostages back. This is promoting a path for regional, in the Middle East, regional cooperation between Israel and neighboring countries to really solve the problem of terrorist organization. And this must start with a local coalition between Israel and neighboring countries, which will suffocate Iran, which will suffocate its proxies. And one of them is, of course, Hamas. And, they always just say, go after the money. Once you break the link of the money, a terrorist organization, along with giving the nation, the Palestinians, and an alternative to Hamas, especially in Gaza, will weaken Hamas, and this is the way in the long term to eliminate it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really well said. I wanted to end again just on your son, Nimrod. So there was a recent video, I believe that Hamas released, where you were able to identify him based on the tattoo on his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that is at least a small hope. But then you've also been hearing from what you said that other people have seen him and they know that he's alive and he's doing okay, or as okay as you can.
Yeah, considerably. Yeah, he's there, he's alive, he's struggling. Uh, we want to end it. We want him free. We want him gaining back control on his life. And of course, the main concern is, yeah, he's alive, but anything can change in minutes. And we saw it in the end of August, where 6 hostages were assassinated because IDF soldiers were maneuvering in that area. This is why we are frightened of Netanyahu's plan to go back to war. To war on what? We don't know. What is known, if going back to war will directly endanger the hostages, including my son.
Right. Well, I thank you, Yehuda, for your advocacy and your outspokenness and your truth. I hope you're reunited with Nimrod soon, and I hope that there's justice for all people in this conflict. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, and hope this day will come soon. Thank you.